Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason live on this Friday, and man, March Madness is living up to its name. The Wildcats, yeah, I know all you Arizona fans, bear down. Got taken out by Princeton, the 15 seed. Well, speaking of getting taken out, that's what's going on in the banks today. I've told you, I've begged you, I've given you all the reasons why you need to get that excess money out of those banks. 800-951-0592, the website at allamericangold.com. And despite all the best efforts, I mean, think about it. The Swiss National Bank says, "Hey, Credit Suisse, here's $54 billion." Yesterday, we talked about the big banks. We're going to help save First Republic, and they come 11 banks, and we're going to give them $30 billion in deposits. Not enough. Not enough. How many times do I have to tell it to you? Haven't you figured it out yet? Listen, these off-balance sheet, quote-unquote, securitized loans aren't worth the paper they're printed on. It's just that simple. And today we learned new things. Yeah, I know, right? That wasn't enough? Oh, no. Now, remember last week, it's Sunday. They closed two banks, as we know, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. And they did something never seen before and said all the depositors are going to be able to keep their money. Yeah, that 250,000 thing, forget about that. And it was interesting because these weren't, what we would call a regular bank where you and I bank. These were rich people banks, billionaire banks. Janet Yellen yesterday wanted everybody to know, hey, by the way, I know what Maria Bartiromo was telling you on TV last week that, apparently all deposits are insured. No. See, we're only going to insure the deposits where our really rich buddies bank at. Yep. Somewhere between the top 50 and the top 100 banks. So think about it. We got about 4,000 banks. So essentially, on a percentage basis, we're looking at about, 1 to 2% of all the banks in existence in the United States. We're going to honor anything that's in there. All the other 99, 98%, nah, not you guys. That's a big problem. That's a huge problem. Of course, we told you with digital currency coming, we don't need 4,000 banks. Heck, we don't need 400 banks. And what a good way to do it. I'm going to tell you right now, First Republic, doesn't matter and by the way, the First Republic has borrowed $130 billion from the Fed. They've gotten pledges for $30 billion more of deposit from 11 major banks. And guess what? The math still doesn't work. And this is a bank that barely has over $100 billion in assets. It's not too big to fail. Well, apparently, Jason, it is too big to fail.
Yeah, I was telling Joe this morning about this an Apollo chart, something I've never heard of before, which measures risk of assets. And Silicon Valley Bank is on this chart, and it says tighter credit conditions are coming. All banks to the right in this chart of Silicon Valley Bank are likely to immediately start reorganizing their balance sheets. There's 34 of them. 34 of these regional, smallish, medium-sized banks are in worse shape than Silicon Valley Bank, and it just took Silicon Valley Bank to start this to start happening. I mean, it's funny, I didn't even know this, but Joe Biden was answering some questions on Monday, and when they started asking about the banks and the banking situation, he just turned around and walked out of the room. The Roosevelt room is where he's doing the interview, Joe. And I mean, they know. The president knows. Everyone. I think they know, Joe. They know, and they don't. They're just going to try to spin whatever webs they're going to spin to see if who they can catch in that web, and it's just going down. It's going. I thought it would take a little bit more time. I thought they would kind of squash this one. I think that's what they were hoping for, but it looks like it's snowballing right now, doesn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it is. It's really getting ugly out there. Gold's up 40 some dollars here. It's at the highs of the year, 1965. Silver's up 65 cents. The Dow down over 400 points as the bank run continues. Credit Suisse back in the news. The deposits continuing to leave. They don't know what to do, Jason. That they're offering a higher rate of return than anybody else out there, and saying, "Hey, just put your money here. Give us $5 million for a year. We'll give you 7% on your money." And guess what? There's no takers. No thanks. Matter of fact, I'm going to take the other $5 million I already got there. I'm going to take that out with it as well. And again, there's no place to hide here. This is just simple math. Listen, it's easy. You told the banks you have to buy these securities, treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, and they bought them all when rates were low. Rates aren't low anymore. And guess what? Now people are pulling their money out, and we've got ourselves a full-blown banking crisis. 800-951-0592. Jason and I are coming right back. Eight 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour, wrapping up the week here. A quick market recap. The Dow is down 380 points. The S&P is down 41. The NASDAQ's down 100. Gold's up 40. Silver is up 65 cents. The 10-year note, man, trouble here. Down to 3.40 on a 10-year note. They got down into the 3.3s earlier this week. We're right back where we started. Listen, if you want to get some of your money out of the madness, something that's not correlated to the markets, something that doesn't care about a bank run, check out our friends at investyrrefi.com. You got to have at least $50K. That's the minimum, but check it out. Investyrrefi.com. The word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or just call them 888-YREFI24. You could get up to 10.25% on your money. And Jason, it is starting to get a little scary here. So we've got the weekend coming. Yesterday, we had this pledge to protect First Republic. And again, this is a bank that it's smaller than Silicon Valley Bank, right? It has a little over $100 billion, maybe $120 billion worth of deposits. You had 11 major financial institutions pledged to put $30 billion in there. But here's the funny thing. As I told you before, they borrowed $120 billion from the Federal Reserve this week. Plus $30 billion. Let's just do some math real fast. Well, that's $150 billion. That's more than all of the deposits in the bank. That's got to be great. Oh, you're good. No, absolutely not. Why? Because most of the stuff they're holding is down 20, 30, maybe even 40%. The math just isn't adding up. And this is why we're seeing the problem continue. Janet Yellen was testifying in front of Congress yesterday. They were talking about the budget. They brought up what was going on in the banking area. And one of the questioners, James Lankford, he's from Oklahoma. And he wanted Janet Yellen to say hey, and here was the question. Will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, okay, so these are banks, listen, they're not in the top 50, they're not in the top 100, heck, they're probably not even in the top 1,000. Will every deposit in every community bank of Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Will they get the same treatment as the depositors of SVB or Signature Bank just got? Now, remember what I told you. The depositors at those banks were different. They were rich people. And by rich people, I'm not talking about a guy's got $1 million. No. Right? You're talking about guys that are billionaires that, hey, I got 50 million in my bank account. Now that's unconscionable. 50 million? You're a billionaire. What's 50 million? Janet Yellen's answer shouldn't have surprised anybody when she flat out said that absolutely not. These banks will be treated differently. She said the only banks, I can't make it up. The only way that they would be fully covered, remember, SVB, Signature, anything over 250,000 should have been taken away. That's how you pay for losses. That's how it works. Didn't happen. They said, no, they get to keep their money. So here's their quote. Uninsured deposits would only be covered in the event that a failure to protect the uninsured deposits would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences. And I'm like, what? There's $150 billion in unsecured deposits at SVB. $150 billion, that's nothing. That was going to create significant economic and financial consequences. Jason, it's laughable. Let me tell you right now, you're in one of these little banks, you better not have a lot of money in it, because I'm going to tell you right now, Janet Yellen just told the whole world, you don't have a bunch of rich guys with 50 million, 100 million, 500 million in those deposits, you're not getting it.
And there's a couple of things. One, we learned this week that the FDIC rules can just be changed on a whim, right?
She just changed them again.
Yeah. And number two, if the FDIC has no money to give, your $250,000 isn't covered. Remember, if they decide that pot of money is empty, they'll just come out and just say, well, we can't insure anything. That pot of money is empty. I mean, it's that simple. So whenever they decide they can't give it to anybody, they just won't.
Here's a certificate, an IOU.
An IOU.
Right? Remember Dumb and Dumber, right? Right now, we're Dumb and Dumber, okay? We're Dumb and Dumber. Now, the two guys on Dumb and Dumber, they were smart. They spent all the money in the briefcase and stuffed it full of a bunch of IOUs. Right? If you want to be Dumb and Dumber, then leave your money in the bank, because that's an IOU. It's just that simple.
And Joe,
I don't know what's going to happen this weekend.
Just 7 days ago, Janet Yellen was saying, well, we're looking at a few banks. And then after looking at this chart I looked at last night and this morning, apparently they're at least looking at 34 banks, right?
That was our breaking news last Friday. I'm looking at a few banks. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, let me explain it to you. Let me make it simple for all of you, okay? We've been on a rate hiking cycle, and we're doing what they call quantitative tightening. Janet Yellen did quantitative tightening once. And let's remind all of you what happened, because I know you guys forget stuff. Because it was a while ago. I mean, we all do. Come on. It lasted less than a year. This was when the balance sheet was, by the way, what, $4.2 trillion? And they were like, we're going to get it down to $2.5 trillion. Well, they got all the way to about 3.8 trillion. When Bank of America was writing letters to the central bank over the summer saying, what are you guys doing? Don't you know what's going to happen in September? But this is just basic math. We're going to have a huge problem. And remember, we had the tantrum, right? Remember, Wall Street went down to like 22,000. And of course, what COVID-19 came to the rescue, right? This week alone, the Federal Reserve, this is how big the problem is. And it's a whole lot more than Credit Suisse and First Republic. Banks have added $400 billion to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet in a week. We've been doing quantitative tightening for what, about a year? About a year? In 1 week, the Fed's balance sheet is almost back to right where it was when we started quantitative tightening a year ago. We're almost back to the $9 trillion, Jason.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up COVID, because that's a market crash that doesn't get talked about very much, which was, the market conditions were kind of like they are right now. They were really bad. The repo market was showing that there was somebody that was losing, and I saw a chart last night. It looked like Credit Suisse was one of the ones that was really losing in 2019. And I think they kind of beta tested what they think they're going to do when it gets really bad, which is print 40% of all the money in circulation in America in 1 year in 2020, bleeding into 2021. So, Joe, I think that's their plan. If they have, that's one of the only real tools they have is printing money. And I don't know, I don't know how far it'll go, but it really looks like they're going to keep on raising rates in the middle of also printing money. And I think, Joe, the reason to do that is
Jason and I, we totally disagree. Jason thinks they're going to keep raising rates. I think they're not. Right now, Wednesday, maybe. If you put a gun to my head right now, will they or will they not raise rates on Wednesday? Right now, I'm a no. Jason's a yes. We don't know because you don't raise rates when you're adding to your balance. Well, you're not supposed to anyway when you're adding to your balance sheet. Again, right. This is that box. There's no good choices here. And don't get me wrong. There's no good choice. What Janet Yellen said yesterday, I hate to tell you, she's right. She's right. I don't care about the old lady in Oklahoma that's got $500,000 in her bank account. We're going to take that $250. Heck, we may not even give her the other $250, and we don't know. But the guy that's got the $250 million, yeah, we're going to protect him. That's what they're telling us. That's what they're saying. And what they're telling everybody, if you're paying attention at all, we're going to get rid of all these little banks. That's exactly what they're saying, Jason. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and there's no doubt there. I agree with that. The competition is a sin. That's John Rockefeller, famous. He used it many times while he was alive. Competition is a sin. Standard Oil, they had 96% of all American oil under their control at one time in the 1800s. So, I guess pretty soon, Joe, him and his Federal Reserve Bank, him and his group of owners of that bank are going to have 96% of the money, the banking industry, I guess, right? They're going for it.
They're just, it is very fast moving. I really thought yesterday that maybe they had calmed the markets with JP Morgan, B of A, Citigroup. They even had one at State Street was involved, Bank of New York, Mellon, Goldman, right? All the who's who of banking to put that deposits into First Republic, and the Dow kind of rallied. Gold actually was down yesterday. Right, of course, now today, right now it's on $43 in climate at new highs for the year. Today, Wells Fargo came out. Worst case scenario, gold's going to double from here. They're like, best case scenario, gold's only going to go to 3,000. Okay. Listen, gold's going to go a lot higher than that. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, but I agree. Listen, I agree with you, Wells Fargo. You're right. Gold's going to be going a lot higher here. This is going to be very, very interesting. What's going to happen next week? I don't know if there's going to be more action taken over the weekend. I mean, the Fed has added $400 billion to its balance sheet in a week. This is a big, big problem. And then Janet Yellen goes out. I mean, the article's on CNBC. It's not like this is, Joe found some great. No. We're only going to keep whole the depositors we think are important, which is really rich people. And if you're not really rich, we don't care. We don't care about your bank. And think about it. There's 4,000 banks. And what is she talking about? 100 banks? 50 to 100 banks? The other 3,900 banks, she's telling you. It can't be more plain than that. When we get back, we're always trying to find something. And I think I've got one heck of an item coming up next. Patriot Radio News Hour will be right back.